Welcome to Made for Mondays, the source for digging a little deeper into the Believers Church Sunday messages and finding ways to apply them to our daily lives. Together, let's take a deeper look and find a way to bring Mondays.
Hey everybody, welcome to the pod. My name is Heather, and who are you fellas?
Hey, what's up? I'm the day after Christmas Santa. It's a long day, Christmas Day, and
Right.
I'm just ready to chill and relax.
Yeah, you look very relaxed.
Yeah, it's this robe. It's just full of comfort.
I'm so
day
glad.
after Christmas.
You know, on the back of some fabrics, they say or clothing, they say what it's made out of, like cotton or polyester. It just says comfort on this one. It's weird.
That's
100%.
nice. That's
100%
great.
comfort?
Yeah, don't wash because it'll leak out and get everywhere. But yeah, just comfort.
Who the heck are
Hey,
you?
Doug. I'm Buddy Dell.
Hey, everybody.
Buddy the Elf, a.k.a.
Joe.
Okay, great.
Minus the tights.
Yeah, didn't want to go there,
Praise
guys.
Jesus.
I do have the tights.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But I spared everyone.
Yeah, we're grateful to the highest heavens. Okay.
Yeah, it's me. I've
Yeah,
been pigeonholed
everyone knows.
as the Grinch.
Everyone knows who you
I'm
are.
not very Grinchy, but, I'm trying to match this
Yeah.
guy.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I am John McClane.
John
Nice.
McClane. The best Christmas movie.
Yeah, it is the best
Yeah.
Christmas movie. Maybe a little controversial, but
Nah, it's not.
I
It's,
don't know
it's
why
a
people argue it.
It's fake controversy.
Yeah.
I've only seen it one time
we're
last
all
year.
Team
but-
Christmas here for
Yeah,
Die Hard.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
saw
it's
it
Christmas.
last year?
Yeah, I saw it last year for the first time.
For
What?
the first time?
Yeah. We don't have to get into that.
We
again.
don't, please.
Y'all know
Because
me
there's
in
so
movies.
many movies.
But I saw it and I'm like, that's definitely Christmas.
Yeah.
The entire movie takes place at a Christmas
I mean,
party.
seriously, what is
What
there
else
to
do
argue?
you need?
Right.
Yeah.
It's for sure a Christmas movie. Come at us.
I can't wait.
interwebs.
Somebody will.
Yeah.
All right. So, hey, you guys, what did you do this weekend? Anything fun?
Oh, man. I wasn't prepared for this. Oddly enough, I was
Oh,
not
I
prepared
know.
for this question.
This is a brand new question. I just started asking
Oh
it
man,
this week.
yeah, this weekend was weird. Rachel's birthday was the day after Thanksgiving, so it was tough to do something then. So we kind of celebrated on Saturday.
Oh, fun.
And just had some friends hang out and
Yeah.
just had a good time with that. But then, man, it was just such a busy weekend. Ellie had a dance routine thing or a dance
Recital?
intensive.
Oh.
So it was like a training camp kind of thing.
Okay.
And that was like, man, yeah, just the whole weekend. It's crazy. She was so tired. So it was just a really, really
Yeah.
busy weekend. It was one of those weekends where you have all these things happening and you're trying to fit them all together. And as me and Rachel were getting home just enough time to go to the next thing,
Yeah.
it was crazy. So, but it was fun. Looking back, I was like, oh, we did a lot of things.
Right.
Yeah, very eventful.
Very good.
Yeah, this weekend was great. We Friday night went to a going away party for a friend moving out of town. I guess that's what all friends are doing these
Oh,
days.
yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people are moving.
Yeah, commonplace. But and then
Very transient area.
Yeah, it is.
It is.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then Saturday we had our pal family Christmas party, which is pretty
Oh,
cool because
fun.
my grandpa was one of 10 children, so there are 3 remaining, and they got up and prayed and everything. But the next generation has taken over the Christmas party the last 3 or 4 years. So like if they don't, then stuff like
Yeah.
that will just die off.
Right.
And
So has it gotten more raucous as
It
we're
has,
younger?
yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah, it was fun.
You
There.
guys play games and stuff,
Yep.
and
Play
yeah,
games.
Very
yep.
cool.
Prizes, all the things. This time it was baseball themed. They have a different theme
Oh,
every year.
cool.
So, yeah.
Fun.
Yep.
Very cool.
Yeah, it was good.
Jamie,
So Thursday went to Heirloom to celebrate my daughter's birthday, and that was very fun. And they have a really good happy hour menu, but turns out if you order lots of things off the happy hour menu, it's still
very
really
expensive.
Yeah. So I dropped way more money than I was planning to on Thursday night, but it was fun. We had a good time. And then Saturday, I actually got around to putting up the Christmas tree.
so great.
Yeah.
And I didn't put everything out, but I put the Christmas tree up and I put the garland on the mantle and called it a day.
There you go.
Yeah.
And you feel so festive.
Yeah, I mean, just look at me.
I know. Just look at you.
Super festive. Yep. Yeah. So that
very
was good.
cool.
Oh, and then last night went to see a movie, Bonhoeffer, which I
Oh,
didn't
how
even know.
was it?
I didn't even know that movie had come out. But a friend of mine
I want to see it so
reached
bad.
out to me and asked if I wanted to go, and it's only playing at one theater in the area right now. It's down off of Independence. It was really good. I read that book.
Yes.
But the The movie was very well done, and I don't even like Christian movies.
Right.
It was a very well done Christian movie.
Who did this one? Was it like
Angel Studios.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I know the guy who did The Chosen. He's doing a lot of movies now.
That's the same company,
Oh.
I think.
Awesome.
That's what Derek told me anyway. Yeah.
He's really good. His movies.
It
are
was
definitely
very
a
well done.
higher
Of course,
class.
it's a true story. You know, the Bonhoeffer
Right.
story is just quite a compelling story anyway. It was very well done.
Yeah, that's cool.
It was
Yeah,
excellent.
some of the previews that I've seen look remarkable. I've wanted to check it out.
You should get down there before it's gone.
Yeah.
Because I don't think it's going to be much longer. Derek was saying it was at Cinemark, but movies have to have like a strong start to stay in the theater for a little while. And Derek was like, I think it was just the timing of it. Like, big movie came out right
Right.
before this one dropped, and then another big movie came out right after it dropped. And he said it dropped off super fast, and they pushed it out of the theater, so
Yeah.
it was gone.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, highly recommend it.
Yeah, we'll have to see that. We went to Commune in Norfolk on Friday for lunch. If you haven't been there, it is super
yeah.
great. It's so delicious.
I thought you said a commune.
No.
It's like, all right.
Commune, like the
so much
restaurant. It's very good.
That's so
cool.
good.
Yeah.
I was so confused.
I mean,
Doug
you could
loves
go
it.
to a
Doug
Commune.
loves a good
I would
commune,
love to
though.
go to a commune.
Yeah.
Yeah, just go to some multi-house land and
Right.
eat lunch with them. That'd be
AKA
awesome.
Aren't
family
you trying to do that? That's kind of your goal eventually.
Yeah, so it's happening very soon.
Yeah.
Not me. My sister's moving on to my parents' land. So.
Yeah. I mean, you're going to get roped into that eventually.
How many
There's
houses
another,
does it have
there's
to be
another
to be a commune?
Angel movie that's getting ready to come out about end times. It's called Homesteading.
Oh,
Are you serious?
There
I'm
you
dead
go.
serious. They showed a preview for it
It's
last
called
night.
End
It's an
Times?
end of times movie.
Oh, man, okay.
It looks pretty interesting.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
mean, yeah.
Here we go.
Start getting ready. Start prepping.
That's what they were doing.
Yes.
Yeah.
There you go. And then on Saturday, we went to another I went to another Norfolk staple, No Frill Grill.
Oh yeah, I love that
which
place.
is just never disappoints.
Yep.
So
Yep. My
if
daughter
you're-
loves that place.
Yeah, in Norfolk, couple great places.
Yep.
So yummy.
Yep. Should we explain real quick why we're dressed up?
No,
Okay,
why?
we did. Okay, cool.
Just keep
I love
rolling.
that.
Yeah.
Let's keep going.
This is way better.
It's Christmas time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is what we do.
Right.
All right.
Dress up as whatever you want at Christmas time. All right. So we are in our Bible reading challenge. And this week we are reading 3 chapters,
Yeah.
actually. But before we get to that, we got a question about one of our verses from last week's reading. And I would say that it's like, I don't know, it's maybe like a, what the what?
You all right?
Yep.
All right.
Okay, and here's what it says. I noticed in John 15:25, Jesus says, quote, their scriptures instead of scripture or the scriptures. I suppose he's saying the religious leaders who will not see him for who he is are now separated from him and are on their own path, question mark. This came from Joel Hawkins. So I would like to hear if you guys have a response.
Doug is
For
in the
Joel's
teacher seat this
question.
week. You got a
Oh, yeah.
you got
Yeah.
a response, Doug?
Yeah, so this
So,
is really cool.
Teacher Doug, will you give us a little bit of insight
Yeah,
into
so
John 15, verse 25?
if you have I have one of those reference study Bibles that if there's somebody's quoting something from the Old Testament, it kind of gives you the reference and it kind of draws you to Psalm 35:19 and then Psalm 69:4. And 35:19 says this, and this is David writing about enemies chasing him and all that. So 35:19, do not let those gloat over me who are my enemies without cause. Do not let those who hate me without reason. So David is just talking about his enemies. They're trying to find him, trying to do harm to him. And he's praying to God saying, don't let them gloat over me. Don't let them win. And it's just like this prayer of, anger and fear and worry and all the things. And Jesus is saying in the same way that in the John passage, but this is to fulfill what was written in their law. They hated me without reason. So he's saying oh man, I connect with David here. David is being pursued by his enemies and they're gloating over him, and Jesus is saying the same thing's kind of happening here as well, which is like really telling. I think what he's saying is for the Pharisees and the people who were trying to disrupt what Jesus was doing, he's kind of telling them, like, you guys have become the bad guys of your own story.
Yeah.
Like, these are your scriptures. You guys know these things. And he's comparing them not to David, but he's comparing them to David's enemies. And I think that was like, it was really telling as to what's actually happening there. So I think there's a part of that. And then in Psalm 69:4, it's just a little bit of a different context, but it's still pretty cool. 1 second. So Psalm 69:4, those who hate me without reason outnumber the hairs on my head. Many are my enemies without cause. Those who seek to destroy me, I'm a force to restore what I did not steal. So he's just saying again, like, these people are out to destroy me, and it's without cause. There's no reason for this to happen. They're doing it for the wrong reasons. And again, comparing his enemies to the bad guys in the Old Testament here. Yeah, and I think it's Jesus's way of just like bringing context to what's happening. But even that phrase, like, and I think the question when he says it is written in their law, it's weird how he kind of says that, because it was his scripture as well. Like, Jesus was well versed in the Old Testament and the books of the law. But in a way, I think he's saying, like, he's adding a relationship to them and a connection and almost a responsibility to the Pharisees, saying, you guys know this, it's your law as well, and you should know better.
Yeah.
You're now the bad guys, and you're becoming the person that you were supposed to fight against.
Right.
So, yeah, I think he's just adding like a level of almost responsibility,
Accountability
and making it like relational.
Yep.
Like, this is yours, you should know it, and you guys should know better.
I think also like almost a bit of irony too, because like in that passage, he's setting up there's the people of the world, and then there's the people who recognize him from the Father. And he's creating these two separate groups. And then he says, and you belong to this group that doesn't recognize what's happening, that I am sent, in fact, from my Father. And what Joel asks about I think that's partly what it is. Like, he's saying, like, you don't recognize it, even though it's part of it's your law, your scriptures. So like the great irony is, like, this is what you say you are an expert in, and you're missing it completely.
Yeah.
So like, don't take my word for it. Look at your own law. Look at your own scripture. But yeah, I think he's setting up these two camps, and I like what you said about the relational aspect of that too. I think it's really good.
Yeah, it's funny because like they were saying that Jesus's actions were done by the power of demons, and his words were the words of demons and stuff like that. He's like, okay, I get it. You don't trust me. Read what
Trust
you
your own
believe.
scripture.
It's right there.
Yep.
Yeah. So it was good.
Yeah.
That's good. Well, thanks for that response, fellas. I hope that helps you, Joel. So from chapters 16, 17, and 18, did anything stand out to you guys this morning as you were digging into those first chapters?
Yeah, so I looked at John 18:36, where Jesus answered, "My kingdom is not an earthly kingdom. If it were, my followers would fight to keep me from being handed over to the Jewish leaders, but my kingdom is not of this world." I think, as we went through the Divided We Stand series, I think that verse kind of speaks into that whole idea of there are so many Christians who are trying to establish, trying to marry their politics with their faith so that their faith kingdom becomes the kingdom of this world. And Jesus here clearly says, that's not what it's about. And interestingly, like in the Bonhoeffer movie, it was so interesting to me because I've had people say that, like, we've been in this Bonhoeffer moment, like that Christians need to stand up to the state. And most Christians, when they're saying that, are saying that, like, we need to stand up to, like, the liberal movement, the leftist movement. We need to take a stand for truth. That's what Bonhoeffer did. To be silent is to be complicit. All these things that are themes in the Bonhoeffer story. And if you don't know the Bonhoeffer story, I mean, it's just so incredible. But it was during Nazi Germany and the rise of Hitler and all of the things. And the German church was co-opted by Adolf Hitler. And Bonhoeffer led a national church movement, like an underground church, to remain faithful to Scripture and faithful to Christ. And honestly, as I was watching the movie, it was the opposite for me.
Yeah.
It was, I saw a lot of like right conservative talking points that were being argued for, and like the church, the German church, was setting up Hitler as the savior for their nation, the savior for their economic woes. He was pointing out the people groups who were responsible for the demise of their economy and all of these things. Most of those are really conservative talking points, and I couldn't help but feel the tension of that. And so like, it really doesn't matter, honestly, which side of that you're on. Anytime you try to conflate the state with your faith, it's just never a good outcome. And it was, I thought, just a powerful portrayal of not just, the Christian nationalism thing, which is a problem, but even the other side of it. It's anyone who's trying to make the church about their ideology rather than what Jesus says here, my kingdom is not of this world. And so it's otherworldly. And if you've tried to make it about your political slant or your worldview, then I think you're missing out on what Jesus is really advocating.
Yeah.
Yeah, I read somewhere Bonhoeffer wrote a letter to, I think it was his brother, but it might have just been somebody really close in his church kind of movement. And he wrote a letter and he was talking about the dangers of Nazism as it was rising. And I think he said, like, the only way to combat a hatred like this is for a group of people to live out the Sermon on the Mount. And the context of that is like the idea of loving your enemy and stuff like that. And he was saying the only way to fight against true hatred is with like true unconditional love. And I think for a guy who was in the middle of some probably the worst situations in human history, for him to say that was quite telling. Like the way to fight against it is with the love of Christ.
And so a little caveat to that, of course, one of the great contradictions of Bonhoeffer, who was an avowed pacifist, was that he was also part of an assassination attempt against Hitler that obviously failed. But he became so convinced that the atrocities that were being committed were so evil that he had to be a part of this thing. Like, I don't even know, like, was that the right answer? Was it not the right answer? Because I think his convictions were what you just said.
Yeah.
And as he lived out the end of his life in a concentration camp before he was hung, and he was hung 3 weeks before Germany surrendered. So, like, he almost made it to the end. But he was offered opportunities to escape and all these kinds of things, and he submitted himself to the state's authorities at the end, and that became the witness. There's this really powerful scene where he's serving communion to this group of prisoners that he's a part of, and one of the prison guards comes to take communion with him, and he says, "No, this isn't my table. This is the table of Jesus. It's for anyone who wants to come to it." And he serves this prison guard.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Communion. It was so powerful.
Yeah.
So at the end, he does take the pacifist route, but he has that moment where he's not sure.
Yeah.
It's very compelling, and it's
Yeah.
It's a true story.
And I think that's the difficulty of this is like you have the idealist kind of view of like love your enemies.
Yes.
Oh, cool. Until you actually face an enemy,
Right.
And you realize how difficult that is.
Yeah.
And I guess when the enemy becomes, the more power you attribute to that enemy, the more dangerous it becomes. And I think those questions are okay to wrestle with. And his story is an amazing story of like the tension between following Jesus and making it practical in a life situation that affects millions. So, yeah.
And in that case, the entire world.
Yes,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, it's just, it's pretty amazing. Yeah, Yeah. So anyway, that's what stood out to me in the reading.
Yeah, that's
Guess
It happened to tie into the Bonhoeffer story too.
Yeah. That's awesome.
I'll jump off of that real quick because what stood out to me, I love anytime Jesus or Scripture teaches us about how to handle trials and suffering. And so like my life verse from James chapter 1 is that we are to consider it pure joy that when we face trials, because it gives us an opportunity to test our faith in a way that will produce perseverance and thus make us complete and mature in our faith. And so this week in John chapter 16, verse 33, he's telling us there's also peace in that he provides peace in the middle of trials and suffering too. So, and Doug, you touched on that yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that we aren't promised a life without trials and how Jesus can help us through it. So,
Yeah, that's good.
Yep. So good. Well, that leads us right in. Good segue, Joe. Leads us right into yesterday's message. Doug, so good. You did such a great job leading us into this conversation about how Jesus came to give us this wonderful life, and some of that is realized in community with others. And we started off thinking that you did not show up
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
for service.
It was very funny.
And you gave a lot of people little anxiety.
Yes.
My daughter-in-law did not like it. She got real nervous.
What did she do?
Apparently, she just like leaned over to Spencer and was like, "I don't like this. I don't like the anxiety that's happening right now."
Did she know something was happening, or was she completely?
No,
in the
she
dark?
like really like was like, what's happening?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, my daughter leaned over to me first service and she said, "Everyone's looking at you."
Yeah,
Come on, Jamie, do something.
yeah,
Get up there and preach.
yeah.
That's so funny. I didn't even process think that was going to happen.
It's so funny. Like different people. Like I think some people like. Yeah, just I think you realize people's personality differences. Like some people are like, "Oh, this is believers. They're they're up to something." You know, that kind of thing. So they just think it's funny. Some people, just lean into like right away are like nervous and they don't like that something's not going right. You know,
That's funny. So behind the scenes, me and Jeremy were watching it right backstage where we had the TVs, so we can kind of see what's on the screen, so we can see what's happening when the camera's on the stage. And Jeremy told the team just to let it go as long as you can until it's like super awkward, but not like past that, right? So we're watching it, and I think at one point we both looked at each other and said, "Oh no, it's like super awkward. Hit play in the video right now." But yeah, I think it was a real fun way of highlighting, helping others, and sometimes it means that life gets a little messy, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
Our CG volunteer, impact team member, Journey, she was the one that like had control. And when I told Kendra that, they're like really good friends. And she was like, "Oh, and Journey loves an awkward moment. Like she would have let that go for a very long time." So for our people who were not a part of service yesterday and may not have had an opportunity to watch yet, our creative team, our video team did an amazing video of Doug getting held up on his way to church yesterday because you were helping so many people.
Well, plus you were doing laps around the traffic circle, which is so true to life.
It's so true. When we were filming
Turn
it was kind of dangerous at one point. I'm going around, and people don't know how to drive on roundabouts.
No, they don't.
So I'm looping it, which you're kind of not supposed to do either. But I'm looping it one way around, and the people trying to yield didn't yield, and they pulled out in front of me, and another guy waited and pulled in behind me. So Jeremy was in the car filming as well. It's like we almost got into an accident.
Which is true
Filming
to
this
life.
movie. Yeah, true to life.
But and we paused everything live in service for Doug to then like come out of the video and show up late to service.
Yeah.
So it kind of created this tension moment, but it was really great. And you came in and you just did a really good job of opening the conversation in service, but I thought it would also be good for us today to open this way with this question of, do you remember the moment in your life that you first connected with a good friend? The conversation that led to the friendship starting or the circumstances that brought you together. So I was just wondering, like, Doug, you kind of shared a little bit of a story yesterday, but you may have had other, opportunities to develop those friendships. So you can share again. But you guys, do you have
Yeah,
any of those moments.
It's kind of funny, Doug, that you had a friendship born around a Weezer song.
Yeah, how cool is that, right?
Yeah, I think it's great. But it does make me think of like when I first came to faith, I didn't know any other Christians in my entire school, well, except for my brother, who, he was like really incredible. His conversion to Christianity was just this dramatic thing, and I heard people talking about my brother all over the school because of how different he was. But I didn't know anyone, and I went to a Christian concert, and the band was DeGarmo and Key, and I show up at this concert. And I didn't know him, but I recognized a kid working the record table. And I knew he was from my school. I didn't know his name. And I went up to him and we talked about music. And that was Gary Cataranak,
Oh,
nice.
who
Gary.
was I still am friend. He lives in Charlotte today. And I still go to Charlotte and catch a concert or two. Saw Striper with him a couple of years ago. But yeah, that whole friendship started over alternative Christian music that we were both very much into, and he became a fast friend, like just like you said, instant deep friendship over music.
That's amazing.
And yeah, it changed everything for me. Like that relationship gave me one other person in my school that I knew had a shared faith, and it changed the trajectory of my high school career.
That's amazing.
I didn't know you guys met over like a concert like that.
Yeah,
That's really cool.
I guess I didn't.
And he got
know that
engaged at a
either.
One Bad Pig concert just to keep the music thing going.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's so good.
at the record table at
Yeah.
the concert.
Yep.
That's great.
It was back in the day.
Back in the day.
Yeah, I mean, mine, I don't mean for it to be sad, but mine was I remember the first friend really that I made in second grade. My friend Torian and we connected over, like both of us were just kind of facing some bullying thing. And, but it's not meant to be sad because it was beautiful. Like we connected in that way and ended up having like a ton of inside jokes and everything. Like it was pretty cool how it turned out. But I still distinctly remember like the first conversation, like both of us just kind of being a bit outcasted and didn't know who to go eat lunch with, stuff like
Right.
that. So yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, the kid who talked to me on the bus, his name's Kevin. We connected, and he was like one of the first friends I had that I felt like I could be honest with. Like I had other friends, but they were always like, "This is my friend who just happens to live down the street, and it's a proximity relationship," or like, "This is the friend who goes to church, and I have to be their friend because they're my church friend." But we never really did anything outside of that Sunday kind of church experience. So I think Kevin was like one of the first friends I had in middle school where I was also going through a lot of bullying at the time. And I felt like I could talk about those things and I could be honest. And he was going through similar things. So I feel like it really was that friendship that allowed me to connect in that deeper level that I was missing in some of the other relationships that, if looking back, they were good. Like it's good to have those friends for different things and different needs in your life.
Yeah.
But I feel like Kevin was like one of the first relationships that was like honest and open in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was good.
That's really cool. So you told us about the Weezer song that describes these feelings of isolation, and you use that to kind of paint this picture of what many of us think of when we think of community, or that we look for in community, really. And it's also the big idea for the week. It's a place where I'm challenged to be real, and I'm real enough to be challenged. So one of the things that really stood out to me in this part of your message was how life's challenges from the time we're in middle school are the same as when we're adults, really. So do you think that most adults are still middle school versions of themselves, trying to figure out how to fit in? And because, like, I think even as adults, we, like, put middle school kids in this category of, like, they're just hard to relate to, hard to, like, figure out. But yet, like, listening to this part of your message, I'm sitting there like, I just so relate to my middle school self still. So how can we one, bridge that gap to the middle schooler between adults and middle schoolers? Like our next gen is so important to us.
Yeah.
But then also just realize that we're just all still trying to fit and find our people, even as adults.
Yeah, I like to think often, if I could go back and talk to my middle school self, what would I say? Like, what advice would I give me at 11, 12, 13 years old? But at the same time, what advice would my middle school self give me as adult self? If a middle schooler, if I could look at myself in the future and say, hey, future self, I hope you're good at this by now. What would my middle school self would have wanted for my life? And I think those are really good, almost thought experiments to have.
Yeah.
Because if I can connect with my middle school self, then I can connect with any middle schooler, and I can try to help them, because it's the same things, the feeling to belong, the feeling to have purpose in life, the need to know that my faith matters, not just on a Sunday experience, but it matters on Monday morning as well. Those are the same concerns that a middle schooler has if they're, trying to follow Jesus now. So yeah, just being honest with, I guess, what my needs were as a middle schooler, and just trying to reflect on those now as adult too.
Yeah.
You're right. They're the same thing.
Yeah.
Just different contexts, different circles, different consequences, because the weight is heavier now as an adult. I have 2 kids that rely and depend on me. So the weight of it's heavier now, but same concerns.
Yeah. Jamie, how do you see that? As the senior pastor, those same kind of struggles for adults that you're ministering to, that Doug might minister to in next gen?
Yeah, I mean, human needs are human needs. And
Right.
I don't think they change much.
Yeah.
I think for middle schoolers, the thing for a middle schooler is, and maybe we do this some as adults, but probably a little less. Middle schoolers are trying to find that group that they can somehow identify with, so they'll chameleon to all these different groups to just try to find a place that, can I stick here? And if I can stick here, then I'll go all in on that. So you saw a lot of that through middle school. It was at our school, it was South Hall versus, that was the smokers hall, you had, the jocks and all those things,
Sure.
Everyone's trying to find, and if you fit in South Hall, well, then you just go all in on that, I think when you're an adult, you've kind of arrived at at least a little bit of who you are. But I think the struggle then becomes how do I take who I am and how can I relate to someone else knowing that this is who I am? So rather than trying to chameleon into a group, I think you just kind of figure out okay, this is who I am, but you're still asking the question, where can I connect? Where can I fit in? Who are my people? And I don't think that ever really goes away. I don't think. So yeah, I think a lot of those. In fact, I was reading through the prayer requests just this morning, and there's a lot of adult prayer requests that now it's there's marriage and there's the kid stuff, and there's other layers of complicating factors, but the underlying factors that they're struggling with are the same things that middle schoolers were struggling with.
Yeah, it's weird because I think you're right. I think when you're younger, you connect with people based on likes and dislikes, and you're trying to form yourself and to become and fit within these groups. And I guess when you're older, you kind of connect with people based on the stage of life you're in. If we have young kids, we tend to hang out with families who also have young kids.
Stage of life stuff.
Yeah, right. And I think it's easier to connect then, even though these two people might be polar opposites. We're in the same place in life, and maybe it's easier to connect that way too, which is kind of fun because then your friendships can be really diverse, but still really, really powerful and strong.
Yeah. So you walked us through this foundational passage of scripture that really shows us what biblical community is supposed to look like, and it's very different than world community. So can you tell us a little bit about what's happening in the world leading up to that passage in Acts?
Yeah, so Jesus dies on the cross and rises from the dead, meets with the apostles and tells them to go teach others all the things that I taught you. And then he ascends into heaven, pretty much showing that he's king over all things. And then the disciples, they go and they're sent and they go teach others the things that Jesus taught them, and they start making other disciples. You see the Holy Spirit come down on the disciples at Pentecost, and they're like empowered to go do this ministry. And the very end of Acts 2, it's almost like this, like a bookend of all the really exciting things that just happened. So Jesus commissions them, they go, they get the Holy Spirit, they're empowered to do this. Peter preaches this amazing message, and thousands of people come to get saved. And then it says, and then the church continued to do this. And these are the things that they were prioritizing. These are the things they did, and this is what happened. People were being added daily to those who were being saved. So it's almost like a like a quick, almost like snapshot. This is what's happening right now, and it was really exciting for them.
Yeah. So you said the first church focused on two things. They focused on the apostles' teachings and fellowship. And you said that fellowship is the training ground where I can practice what has been preached. So practically speaking, how do we live out our faith in community with other believers and also be purposeful about engaging with those that don't yet know Jesus?
Oh, yeah, that's so good, right? So it's fun because I see this as like, if I hear a message on stage, like let's say the message about patience. Patience is really hard, right? Like my B group should be a place where I can practice patience, but be surrounded by grace and understanding when I get it wrong. And I was thinking about it, like the church family is probably the one place that should be filled with grace and understanding and forgiveness. Whereas like if I struggle with this like outside of like a Christian family, then others maybe aren't so forgiving, maybe not so understanding. But the Christian family, it's a place where I can mess up and I could figure this out and we can follow Jesus together, the whole iron sharpens iron approach. And if I'm doing that well with a body of believers, then it just empowers me to do that outside the church too. If I can practice patience with people who also know Jesus, I'm way more likely to be patient when I meet somebody who doesn't know Jesus. If I can't love the enemy of someone who is a follower of Christ, how can I actually love an actual enemy who doesn't know Jesus at all? So if I can't get it right here, I mean, I can't say I won't get it right out there, but it's probably unlikely. And if I'm not able to practice like those principles and the fruits of the Spirit with other people who are followers of Jesus, I don't know. It sets me up for failure outside as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was a very good part of your message, Doug. Our community of believers should resemble like a heart for the unbeliever, right? So like when we're together, not around the unbeliever, like we're getting better in that area, just like you were just talking about with our compassion and patience with an unbeliever. But like at the same time, so we have a heart for those far from Christ. And like at the same time, our group of believers shouldn't be afraid to go out there into a secular space and meet them where they're at. And then also like when the opportunity arises to share your faith, not be afraid of that either.
Yeah, totally.
So it's like it's a lot of commonalities among your community, right? And the more you have, like you just share with B groups, the more you have people around you within your community of believers that build you up in those areas, the better off you'll be when you're chatting with an unbeliever.
Yeah.
How do you guys see that playing out in a church like ours, that hopefully we have a lot of unbelievers here? We have people who haven't been walking with Jesus for a long time. And then we have people that are, I guess what you would say, are seasoned or mature in their faith. And so our community, even at Believers, is it's kind of a mixed bag. So there can be this tension of like feeling like my church family isn't getting it right, or there isn't maybe some of that grace being expressed or that patience being expressed here. Maybe there is some conflict at a B group chat or on an impact team or even in the commons or something. So yeah, just what would be some advice or in those kinds of circumstances? Like if we're at a church that's not necessarily, and we're a little bit larger, so it's not necessarily something that we're all on the same page. We're not all on the same timeline in our faith journey. So how do we practically do that? Even at church, it's not just a here and out there. It's here.
Yeah, I think for the veteran in their faith journey, it's important. The advice I would give would be to often remember back when you were the unbeliever or going to church for the first time or even coming here to Believers for the first time. It helps when you put that lens on, like you help understand that your spiritual bucket is now also very mature, and it's getting filled with community and volunteering and the people that you serve with and your groups and stuff like that. That's not the case for a lot of people that walk through our doors, and you can help those people. So that's, like to just put that lens on every once in a while and remember the first time you walked through the doors.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I would say conflict is good, because conflict means we're actually being honest with each other. If you walk into a place and everybody's perfect, everybody's fake, right? And there's no connection there. Like I can think about some arguments that me and my wife Rachel have had, and in the moment it's never fun. But afterwards, if you resolve it correctly and you come back together afterwards, you're always better because of it.
Yeah.
And I think it's in those moments that we can understand grace better. Like, how can I ever understand grace if I never have to forgive somebody? How could I ever understand true love if I never understand what it means to like experience conflict and to see like a lack of love? So it's in those moments of tension that we can be like Jesus and to kind of grow in our faith as well. So like conflict can also divide, but as long as we're like really moving towards like the fruits of the Spirit in those moments, it's a chance to mirror Jesus in those moments too.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's awesome. Well, we get to celebrate how God meets our needs by helping meet the needs of others. And I loved how you tied that whole concept to the gift. So one of the amazing projects, what are some of the amazing projects we're investing in this year? I know we're doing Operation Blessing. So if you guys want to talk a little bit about, I know Joe and Doug, you both have projects that you're kind of involved in with Operation Blessing. If you want to tell us a little bit more about that,
Yeah.
we'd
Which
love
one
to
are you
hear
doing?
about it.
Well, I'm helping coordinate the packing event that we're doing through the gift with
cool.
Operation Blessing. But today I wanted to talk, because we shared a little bit about that, I think last week. We're doing a packing event with the money from the gift to mobilize people here. The local office for Operation Blessing, I believe is their local headquarters, is over in Greenbrier. They have opportunities every week if you want to go over there and serve and pack hygiene kits. But we're going to use this money to mobilize here and have like a big party around it. And it's going to be so fun for our Believers peeps to come and volunteer in that way. But I wanted to chat for just a second today about how excited I am just about the partnership in general. And so the gift is really like building this partnership, but we are going to be able, so yes, we're packing and we're sending these kits down to the disaster areas in North Carolina, but we're already chatting about it. And if you're interested, come find any of us on staff, but we're already chatting about what it looks like to maybe go down there for a week or a weekend and be the hands and feet of Jesus on the ground there in North Carolina. They have a lot going on, so much to rebuild. So while the gift will be for the packing event itself, our partnership with Operation Blessing is really blossoming, and we have some really cool things.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did something recently with the high school students where we, church-wide, we asked people to collect food. And listeners, you might have been a part of this, and we thank you so much for that. But we were able to collect a bunch of food supplies for Thanksgiving, and the high schoolers built these almost like meal baskets for families. And we did it, and Operation Blessing was able to hand those out to families in need. And it was really cool for students to be able to help families that they might not ever meet, but they know that they're having an impact. So it's so cool for them to see just outside of their own world, they're helping change things for the better. And that's really important for them.
Yeah, because another part of the gift funds, we've been working so hard to build our relationship with the schools and those kinds of things right here in Suffolk. And so another portion with Operation Blessing will be backpacks that are going to be given to students
Yeah.
that aren't able to have food in the times that when schools aren't meeting.
Yeah.
So that's another piece of
Yeah, for
the
sure. And
gift.
they
So-
call them backpack as just a
Yeah.
terminology
Right.
piece because it's so much more than that. The money going towards that effort from the gift is it is multiple times throughout the year that 40 students who are displaced in some way that have struggles with food when they're not at school. So when they're at school, they get provided for. That's great. But they have spring break, they have Christmas break, weekends, all that. So 40 students will be helped with these backpack initiatives. So be provided food all year round
Yep.
Yeah,
during
that's
these
awesome.
times. Yeah.
Really cool. So, Doug, as you continued on in your message, you mentioned that as the church was growing, they really hit a season of persecution. And I know in your 35 minutes of time allotment, you kind of had to fast forward through that and
Yeah.
just kind of march, through the next several chapters and kind of went rapid fire through like about chapter 9 of Acts. But can you give us a little bit of a picture of what that persecution looked like a little bit of a deeper picture of that, and just what was happening to Christians at that time? Even what Jamie was talking about with the Bonhoeffer movie,
Oh, yeah,
was kind of reminding me of that part of your message. Can you just cast a little more vision around that?
Yeah, some of the things that we read is the apostles were arrested and questioned because of what they were teaching. Stephen is the standout one. And for me as a kid, I remember reading about that story about Stephen killed because of his faith, and just thinking to myself, would I be willing to go to that level? If somebody questioned me in front of other people or even in private, what do you believe? Would I be willing to still? And the way he does it, he proclaims his faith and he teaches a crowd of people who are trying to kill him. And then even as he dies, it's like he has a sense of peace. It doesn't seem like there's any fear or reservation. It's like, no, this is who I am and I'm not backing down. And it's such a bold proclamation of who he was, but he was killed for it. And then you just have these other examples of the church facing this persecution, and they have to spread out and they disperse because of everything that's happening to them. Yeah, and it would have been a lot of unrest. It would have been really difficult and dangerous. And even as you're trying to invite somebody to an event, we invite people to Christmas events, and it's oh, this is gonna be really, really fun. Imagine inviting somebody to your house to have a meal and be a Christian, and they know my neighbor was arrested last week
Yeah.
for doing that same thing. I just don't
Yeah.
know if this is what I need and what I want. But still, people were coming to know Jesus because I think what the followers of Jesus were offering and displaying and showing in the way they lived their lives was so very different than anything else the world was throwing at them. So there was a sense where it was just attractional in a way that we typically don't think about today, I think. And people were getting saved because of that.
Yeah, I think it's worth mentioning too that, you think about Stephen in particular, as far as how long had he been a follower of Jesus? Not that long.
Yeah, he couldn't have been, right?
So the church had not been in existence for even a year at this point. So, you have to kind of ask yourself, how could someone's faith have been so, why was he so dogmatic about his faith when it was really so new in the grand scheme of things? And I think that speaks to some of the power of that first church because they were eyewitnesses to the resurrection of Jesus, and Jesus revealed himself, or they were brought to faith by someone who had, right? So those apostles that you mentioned that
Yep.
were commissioned by Jesus, they had all seen the resurrected Jesus.
Yeah.
So they were convinced that their faith was based on an event that was real, and because of that, their determination and their confidence in their faith was so much stronger than maybe someone today who's been a believer for maybe 12 months and
Sure.
wouldn't have the wherewithal to take that bold of a stand. But I think it does speak to the historical nature of the event of the resurrection that propelled that church in that first season to withstand that type of persecution where maybe if it was all fabricated, it would have just folded like a house of cards. But it stood strong because it was built on something that was so real.
Yeah, because there were other people who were claiming to be the Messiah,
Right.
and they did fold.
Yes.
They had followers, and people were like, he's the next one that's going to rescue us from Rome. And then when that guy died, everybody dispersed, and nothing happened from
Right.
it. So yeah, the power of the resurrection was
Yeah.
something that was foundational to
for
everything
sure.
that we have today.
Yeah.
So how does that, like the history of that testimony of these people who went through such turmoil and experienced such hardship and persecution, and how we saw them display such a deep faith and that the message was shared so freely in the midst of all of that, how does that inspire you guys today? Like you said, to just, here they are, inviting people to experience something in the middle of all of that. How does that inspire you to invite someone to something like Christmas in Harborview, or or just to experience like coffee with Jesus? Like, Doug, your passion for that with the students sitting in the front row yesterday was like so great.
Yeah.
So like, how, and I know that you feel that way because you're connected to this, the reality of this.
Yeah. So we were talking about that at Coffee with Jesus with yesterday, and I think when I said like the Coffee with Jesus group is so amazing, I looked down and I saw the whole row of high schoolers, and they were smiling and they were like, yeah. And I told them, like, in that moment, my heart was so happy to see high schoolers excited about Jesus. And I think I looked back when I was in high school, and I didn't have many people like that. Like, even in high school, I didn't have a group of people that I felt like I could have done that with. And they're so open with their faith, and they're so excited, and they're inviting their friends, and we meet right in the middle of Gather. Like, when we were done praying with each other yesterday, there were people around us having coffee, talking about who knows what, and we're praying out loud in front of all these people, sharing life and just talking about Jesus. And yeah, it's so amazing. And Gather is a church-owned coffee house, but like, people are in there who don't necessarily know Jesus, so they're displaying this really cool sense of community and togetherness and love and support that I think reaches out to others, and it just shows somebody else what's possible. I mean, Jesus said, like people will know you belong to me by how you love one another. And that image of love and that sense of unity, I think, is something that everybody craves at some level. And to me, that's such an amazing outreach opportunity, just to display it, to show love. So when we encounter people as we're going about our day, just to remember that, like, unity and love and respect and encouragement and all that is what helped the church thrive and survive through persecution. So what if I showed those same things even today when I'm not facing persecution, and I love the other person, and I try to see them as somebody made in God's image, and I go out of my way to serve them, or just be nice and be present, have a conversation with them. Sometimes those little things matter a whole lot. I had a good talk with somebody the other day at Kroger. I was checking out, and I forgot, he said something. His boss was telling him to go work as a cashier, and he was bagging, and he came over and he was a little frustrated. He said, she always yells at me. I was like, okay. And I'm like, I'm just there trying to buy some groceries. And he's like, yeah, she's always yelling at me, telling me to get back in my position. I was like, yeah, I mean, sometimes helping people's tough, but like, don't feel like you have to hurry, and hurry can be something that's really difficult in our lives, and rest and peace is really good too. He was like, who are you? And I was like, oh, I go to a church down the street. A little conversation about a man who was struggling with what his boss told him to do.
Did you mention that your first job was at Kroger?
No, I did. I should have.
I cannot believe that.
You missed an opportunity.
Looking back, I should have, I understand. But I think in a moment, he just wanted to help, and he didn't know how to do it, and he was frustrated. So I was like, oh, this is an opportunity to talk about like a sense of unity and community and knowing Jesus. And who knows, maybe he'll show up.
Yeah.
And I can share the bagger story too. Little moments like that, I think if we make ourselves available, they could be life-changing for so many people.
Yeah, that's so good. All right, well, that's all we've got time for today. We hope that you will join us as we continue our It's a Wonderful Life series. We'll be on campus this Sunday at 9 and 10:45, or you can always join us on YouTube at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Thanks for being here, friends. Go and be love.